Hello there, you're watching the polls on the JoyNews channel. Coming up this afternoon, Majority Chief Whip wades into the new rift in the minority after former leader Haruna Idrisu refused to sit on a seat purportedly allocated to him. We have details plus an exclusive detail of where exactly Haruna Idrisu is expected to sit now in the lawmaking chamber. We'll get to the very latest. Also, former Director General of the Ghana Education Service, Professor Opoku-Amankwah, alleges that the logging assets of the Education Minister, Dr. Yao Osei-Aduchum, was the account used to place a student in a Category A school following the demand for a 7,000 Ghana cedis bribe. We have the details of that investigative report, plus hear from the Education Ministry on this. Well, don't forget that we're paying attention to some other happenings in some of the parts of the country. Pandemonium at Enyinam police station, as we're learning of, after 2 illegal miners were arrested by security forces. We'll get you the latest updates from the community. All coming up here on The Pulse. I'm blessed Sogah. Don't forget that we're on DSTV channel 421, GoTV channel 144. The Pulse, as always, is brought to you by Global Communities, Dignilu, Affordable Safe Sanitation. We'll be back with the details shortly. Thanks for joining us. Well, to the education sector, uneasy lies the head that wears the crown at the Education Ministry, because the former Director General of the Ghana Education Service, Professor Opoku-Amankwah, is this afternoon alleging that the login access of Education Minister Dr. Yao Osei-Aduchum was the account used to place a student in a Category A school following the demand for a 7,000 Ghana cedis bribe. Professor Amankwah was testifying before an investigative committee tasked to probe corruption in the 2021 senior high school placement. As we speak, it is unclear from the committee's report whether or not the Education Minister denied this assertion, but it notes that the minister's account was being handled by one Ms. Vera Amwa. This has become topical following an investigative piece by the Fourth Estate, which exposed the demand for bribes in exchange for school placements. Investigative journalist Manasseh Azuri will be joining us shortly. If you missed the documentary, here are excerpts for you. We'll get a reaction from the Education Ministry shortly.
The Ministry of Education set up a resolution center at the Natal complex to resolve complaints regarding the computerized school placement system. When the Fourth Estate visited the center, desperate parents were found negotiating and seeking help on the placement of their wards. In that building was a network of security men and cleaners who served as liaisons between the desperate parent and officials of the CSSPS. The Fourth Estate reporter who went undercover met Eric Agri, a cleaner. He indicated he could help change a placement from Apam Senior High School to Mfantiman Senior High School at a fee.
Big school and big school, and yet better says the amount of salary about still between myself from
But in less than 24 hours, Eric increased the amount from 7,000 to 7,500 Ghana cedis and would not reduce it. We presented another candidate who had been placed in Wesley Girls in Accra and wanted a higher grade school, Agri Memorial Zion Senior High School in Cape Coast. Eric demanded 8,500 Ghana cedis for that slot. After demanding and receiving payments, the syndicates changed the placements of the candidate from Accra Girls Wesley to Agri Memorial Zion Senior High School in 2 days. Why are they?
Well, excerpts there of that investigative piece put together by the Fourth Estate. We'll get the very latest from the Fourth Estate shortly as to this latest account that we're hearing of the Minister of Education's account being used to place that student in a category A school. But exactly what's the position of the Education Ministry now that these rumors are becoming rife and the investigative report is pointing to the man at the top? I want to bring in the spokesperson for the Education Ministry, Kwesi Kwarteng, who's joining us via Zoom here on The Pulse. Mr. Kwarteng, thank you for your time this afternoon. I'm sure that by now you've read the report, you've seen what it is that's making rounds online. First of all, is that a true reflection of what it is that the investigative reports suggest? Kwesi Kwarteng, if you can hear me, I'm just asking if the reports that we're putting out there is a true reflection of what it is that the committee has resolved or, identified as part of their investigative findings.
Yeah, hello.
Yes, I'm with you, sir.
Are you able to hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, can you kindly repeat
I was just
question?
asking that by now I'm sure that you've read the reports, the fact that everything seems to be pointing to the Education Minister's access point, a reason for which he's been indicted now, if not at least formally, but concerns arrived that he needs to put across some answers. And that's why I'm asking if the reports out there, the investigative report, accurately captures what it is that the findings are.
Yesterday, I spoke with Manasa on the same subject matter. From the Ministry of Education, our position was not to respond to this because we feel that we've given enough information so far as the subject matter is concerned. And then we've offered a lot of explanation, but it appears, the interest is that, get a big fish, indict him, make the story look big. And maybe the investigative piece would have been seen, or the team would have been seen to have been probably doing a good work. Because, why are we here? The ministry has, in many occasions, on many points, explained the possibility of an asset being abused, coming from the schools themselves, coming from even third parties or the general public. We've never disputed that. But it will be very simplistic for anybody to indict the Minister for Education just on the basis that the general public came to him through persons. It could be journalists, it could be pastors, it could be ordinary Ghanaians, and that for that matter, some changes were made with regards to effecting a change in their wards placement. Very, very simplistic for you to conclude that because, let's say, the minister's access was used to effect a change, then for that matter, one can indict him. If there should be a conversation about indictment, I'm not sure it's a conversation for radio. It's a conversation for the courts. But for us at the Ministry of Education, this is what we are saying. We've explained and reiterated once again that yes, there is a possibility in that the ministry's resolve to also help the general public in the resolve of the schools also didn't help the general public through the protocol system. There is a possibility. How is the Minister for Education able to know that if you submitted a list to him, including person A, person B, person C, how is he able to know that you took A amount or B amount? So we are really struggling to comprehend the motive of this deliberate indictment of the minister into the whole matter. It's just like saying that a security person at Joy FM probably did something wrong. And so for that matter, maybe because it was done in the name of Joy FM, the CEO or the owner of the Joy FM should be blamed. That should not be a fair analysis to say. Again, if indeed you have been able to trace such a person based on the investigative piece, what is preventing us from handing the matter over to whoever state or relevant state institutions that will make a final determination that indeed a person or person A paid this or person B paid this? Of course, I have listened to Manasseh and his submissions and, of course, the write-up that he made. And then he attributes it to Professor Opokwa Mankwa in the third report. Let me hasten to add that, first of all, the report that we have is a draft report. It is not a final document. even if, I mean, such claims have been made, it will be very, very simplistic for you to, based on that, to make a conclusion and say that, well, because the minister's access was used, then for that matter, I mean, the Minister for Education is supposed to be indicted. Again, on the substantive issue about Professor Pokwa Mankwa, that is a former Director General, who, based on Manasseh's report, have again made the position that, I mean, based on the back end, they were able to track or trace that the assets or whoever did it in the name of the minister's assets. I'm also struggling to get that because and the only person or the only party who have access to the back end is only the third party, which happens to be the software developer. None of the staff of the ministry, being it the Minister for Education, the Director General of GES, or whosoever individual, have access to the back end. So it's really very difficult for anybody to suggest that based on this back-end analysis, this is what he saw or that is what he saw. But granted, without even admitting that we've even moved from the document or the report being a draft report, and let's say it's even a final report, what is the big deal about this? The big deal is that at the end of the day, we've been able to identify or trace that an individual who claimed, how do you call it, changes were effected to his placement was done in the name of the minister's assets. Such an individual can be pulled out. We go through the chain. Who did you pay money to? Who submitted such a list? Then we probe it. But to conclude that because an effect or changes has been made, and for that matter, if it was made with the minister's assets, then it indicts the minister is very weak analogy,
okay.
Unsustainable.
Let's get to it then. You seem to be disputing what it is that the Fourth Estate has put out. Do you concede? You feel there are nuances to it, but let's get some clarity here from your perspective. Who operates the minister's logging access?
Granted, that is even myself. It doesn't really change anything.
No, I guess it's a specific question.
No, you see, the point is that whether or not I answer you in a way that you want, there is an issue that is in contention. The issue is whether or not, one, the access was abused. And the other issue is that, is there a possibility that the access can be abused without even the minister himself knowing? So I'm really struggling to.
Yeah, I'm equally granting you that, but I'm just curious to know, how is the minister's logging access operated? The minister
can operate it himself. He can also get any of the staff to operate it based on the exigency of the moment.
On how many occasions do we have third parties aside the minister himself operates that access?
Obviously, I'm unable to speak to that. I mean, that's why I said that a staff can do it based on the minister's supervision or and at the end of the day, based on the exigencies that come, any person could do it based on the minister's instruction. It doesn't matter even if 10 people are doing it. What is most important is that at the end of the day, whoever did it, I mean, was it for the purposes of serving the protocol? Yes. Was it abuse? If it was abuse, was the person aware? Did the person take money? These are some of the relevant questions that we should also add in addition to the questions that you are asking. Because if Kwesi Kwarteng was the one who was even using the minister's assets, and you brought a list, how is Kwesi Kwarteng able to know that the list that you brought, maybe person A or person B paid money, or you unknowingly probably have just been used as a borrower? It's also even possible that you yourself who bought the list might have taken money. But
Kwesi, you seem to be dedealing with the possibilities. I'm asking about the specificity.
So the possibilities are coming in because of the.
I'm asking if has the minister ever designated someone to do that? At least that will give us a clue to identify who may have done this if it's not the minister.
No, I thought I'd answered that, and my answers are also born from the fact that, I mean, you guys went into a hasty conclusion and generalization and placed a judgment and wanted to force your judgment on the rest of the Ghanaians. But you see, the point is that, back to your question, yes, the minister, I mean, gives access or gives his access to people. That is not news. It's been happening that at every point, based on, the exigencies of the moment, the minister can say that particular thing. This is my access. These are the list of protocols you're supposed to enter.
And who then bears responsibility if anything goes wrong?
Obviously, in the entire placement process, at the end of the day, it is the Minister for Education who bears the ultimate responsibility for everything. And that we've never run away from it. It was the more reason why when even Manasseh brought his piece, we came out to express our gratitude to him and even confirm that we're going to use his piece, study it, and then use to strengthen our system. At no point has the ministry or the minister ever run away from that. But that should be separated, and there should be a deliberate separation between taking ultimate responsibility of all the loopholes, all the challenges within the placement system, and then indicting the minister because we felt something went wrong. These are very two different things. I'm not sure if today investigation proves that even if, let's say, the officer who used the minister's access probably took money, it is the minister that is going to face prosecution. Definitely not. It will have to be that officer. Why are we not allowing relevant state institutions to investigate? And then we feel that we can be, we can be prosecutors, we can be judges at the same time, and at no point should anybody question the judgment that we want to place on the people's mind.
Kwesi, I'll allow Manasseh and Adam Senano to join the conversation shortly, but one more hypothetical situation. If you have a bank account, which I believe you have, and you give me your access to withdraw money, in the perception of the bank itself, without knowing who it's behind the machine doing the withdrawals, will the money be credited in your name?
You see, the facts with this matter is very clear, but you try to borrow new facts so that the analogy that you are trying to advance will make sense. You see, within the context of the conversation that we are having, it will not make sense for you to conclude that because my access was used by you, anything that was done, I should bear responsibility for it to the extent of indicting me. And especially within the context that the whole access is not restricted necessarily to the Ministry of Education. It's used to serve the general public. I'm not sure the staff of the Ministry of Education, everybody, every year, all of them have ones that are entering the secondary or senior high schools. We take the list from the general public. We take the list from ordinary Ghanaians. We take the list based on the exigencies of the moment. Within that process, there is a possibility that even the person using the minister's access has been probably turned into a guru boy. Why are we not looking at that? There's also that possibility that even indeed that person should have, probably has compromised himself. Investigations will bring it out, and such person will be dealt with the law. But to try and use this as a base to indict and tarnish the image of the Minister for Education is so unfortunate. And nobody expects a reputable institution like JFM to do that, especially when we have kept on many grounds explain the context within which there could be that possibility. All this that we are doing are based on insinuations and assumptions.
Yeah, but I guess you're shifting the goalpost now. You were, first of all, acknowledging that this is a report by the Fourth Estate. Of course, so let me bring in Manasseh now.
Before you go,
we're not going. I just wanted you to get that reaction, and then I'll get your thoughts. Yes,
I'm shifting goalpost. Okay. I'm surprised.
Right. Kwesi, if you could just land on that point for me, Kwesi. Yes, Kwesi, I'm with you.
No, I'm saying that you said I'm shifting goalposts. I am surprised because at no point have any of us denied that the minister's access could be abused and misused, especially within the context that the general public who submits the list may have been exploited or compromised. But I'm saying that it will be so unfair, so simplistic, unsubstantiated to say that because granted that even if the report in the first place, I said it's a draft report, let's even say without even admitted that it's a final report. It will be so upset to conclude that because, the minister's access was used, then one can make an absolute judgment that the minister is implicated and for that matter.
We haven't said that in our report.
So that was
I don't know if that's what you found with the Fourth Estate. So let me ask, let me ask Manasseh if that's the case.
This is to you. Manasseh have never said that. Manasseh have never said that.
We've never said that either. So we're talking about the login access, and you can check that at myjoyonline.com. Of course, we can all check that right away. So Kwesi, just hold on for me. Given how sensitive this matter is, let's bring in Manasseh as well. Manasseh, what are we learning much more about this?
Well, I think there are interesting revelations here. The first one being that the report is a draft report. This issue of the report came out last week after we did the story, and I have been with Mr. Kwarteng on a number of platforms, and he mentioned that they have received the report and they are working to implement its findings. For the first time, we managed to get a copy of the report, and he's now telling us that it is draft report was presented to the ministry, and what it would take to make the report final, because we have seen the signatures of those who did it. We have seen their recommendations, and there is nothing in that report that indicates that it is draft. Can he point to us what in that report makes it draft?
If you,
the second issue,
if you want to be turned into the spokesperson of the ministry, you can add that up.
Kwesi, I will allow you to respond to some of the points he's raising. I'll give you that time. I'll give you the time. Yes, Manasseh.
I am a journalist. I cannot speak for the ministry, and I'm just asking questions.
Right.
Someone is disputing the status of the report. So it is only fair that he clarifies why he thinks it is draft and what will make it a final report. And when this draft report was submitted to the ministry, because we started talking about this last week, and he confirmed that the report had been done and submitted to the ministry. So for the first time, he's saying it is draft. It is only fair that he gives clarity. The second point is, I was on UTV last week, and he called into the show, and in trying to dispute a claim made by Professor Pokwah-Mankwah, he told us when Professor Pokwah-Mankwah made the first placement, the date, the time where the candidate was placed, and when he made the last placement. Today, Mr. Kwarteng is telling the whole world again that it is only the IT specialist or the consultant who is able to have access to the back end and know what is happening. So the second question I would want to know from him before we proceed is, how did he Kwesi Kwarteng have access to what Prof did at the back end, but full access to category A, just like the minister, couldn't have known what the minister posted? And this question is important because if you read the report, that they couldn't give certain information access to the committee investigating because after 6 months, the system had to be archived, so they couldn't have access to that. So if a committee that was set up in 2022, June, couldn't have access to certain information to check some of these placements, but in 2023, Mr. Kwarteng is able to tell us exact details of what Professor Pokwah-Mankwah did at the back end. How is he able to do that? Because we know he doesn't have access, but Professor Pokwah-Mankwah, who also had access just like the minister, cannot do that because he's telling us only the builders of the platform or the software or whatever it is could have access. I am very interested in knowing how this happened.
Okay. Adam Senanu, I'll come to you shortly. Let's listen to Kwesi Kwarteng on this. Kwesi, so you have some of the questions coming up. Yes.
Again, I am happy Manasseh is bringing out all these questions. And of course, one, it shows the the lack of understanding, for lack of a better word, in the process or in the placement process. Yes, the ministry was able to produce the placement summary of Professor Pokwa because right after the placement was done, we printed the entire placement summary. So we have the details of who plays A, who plays B, to where and to which school. That information existed even earlier before the committee was formed. So it is not as though, we just had that information in recent times. And when the committee wanted some details from the, from the consultant declined. That is the clarification there. That we had that information way earlier, right after the placement process. And like we rightly indicated, the consultant, based on the draft document, had indicated to the committee that after 6 months, the details were archived. So you are comparing 6 months to right after the placement when we retrieved that information. So they are very different, how do you call it? They are very different contexts.
Yes, but he's also raising a question on your, decision to question the status of the report itself
on the issue of whether or not it's a draft. But at no point have I said on any media platform that I have a final, or the ministry has a final, report. I said the report is ready. I'm not sure anybody has questioned me whether or not it's a final or draft report. I have never given a description about the report. But beyond that, what is the bone of contention, whether draft or final? What is most important thing is that through what Manasseh is saying, based on the draft report, or even let's even give Manasseh the benefit of the based on the final report, an anomaly has happened. And the ministry is saying that it is a possibility. The ministry cannot make the final determination. At the end of the day, it rests on the relevant institutions, the police, the CID, to make a final determination and see that A money was paid here, B money was paid here. But the thrust of our argument as a ministry is that it will not suffice. It is so simplistic. It cannot be sustained to connect the dots and then try to point hands at the Minister for Education, just on the basis that somebody feels his assets was used. That's all what we are saying.
Adam Senano, you're also on. I'll come to Manasseh shortly. But looking at the responses that we're getting from the Education Ministry, you have some concerns?
Yes, I have major concerns. I am struggling to understand Mr. Quaten's position on this matter when he suggests that the minister is not responsible. In many of the systems that I have in my office or the boards and other organizations I chair, you have levels of security intentionally positioned because there's a level of responsibility that you are giving to a particular officer. And it is the responsibility, the understanding is that person will ensure that the system is secured, the activities under that system that are tied to his name are done in such a manner that the value that is expected, the information that is supposed to be protected is done. Now, there is absolutely no way I, or anybody for that matter who is thinking through this, can excuse the minister by virtue of the fact that he assigns people. In fact, I feel offended that Mr. Quaten should suggest casually that anybody could be giving the minister's account to assign, allocate, or take whatever actions. It seems to me that we are trivializing a very important aspect of the responsibility of public office holders and suggesting that we cannot hold that individual responsible. Then that defeats the whole purpose of putting in place such systems and assigning levels of security and responsibility. So I'm not quite sure what exactly he's trying to communicate. As far as I'm concerned, the minister is responsible for anything that happened with that account. And I would have expected that the minute this was brought to his attention, additional effort should have been done by himself and whoever is in that office to identify who misapplied that account, what actions were taken, and brought those people by himself or whichever committee who set up to the point where all of us can say that, look, this is somebody who has integrity and is acting to make sure that he's protected. Not to just leave it and say he bears no responsibility and it is simplistic to draw that conclusion. There's nothing simplistic about this. I don't understand what Mr. Kwating is saying, and unless there's an angle, I cannot grasp.
How about a suggestion that looking at how cumbersome the process is, obviously the minister could not have been in charge of all the clearance, looking at the numbers involved and the exigencies of the time?
It does not change the fact that in designing the system, very clear in their minds that we've had challenges in the past. They intentionally made this exclusive to some individuals. What it then means that is those individuals ought to have taken the highest possible precautions to ensure that nothing untoward happens. The fact that the numbers are large does not take away that responsibility, because that is how the system was designed. And to that extent, therefore, if you recognize that you are going to have to bring other people on board, you needed to engage the consultants to it and bring those factors on board into the discussion, so that the system then takes that on board and says that, okay, the minister is going to assign ABC. They must also have their numbers, their barcodes, their so and so and so forth. And you have a limited number of people who are doing this and who you can track. That is how systems are designed. So really, it's just, I don't want to say my frustration when I hear public officers talk like this. That ought to have been brought to the table, system redesign. Anybody, if it's 2 people or 3 people, each of them is giving coding, is giving the levels of security. And when they get into that system, we can track what they did. It is irresponsible for anybody to behave this way and come back and say, no, I'll allow state entities to investigate. And at the end of the day, then we decide who is culpable. No, the minister is culpable. That's my position.
Manasseh, let me take your thoughts, because you've not made any substantive point on this. You just raised questions. So I'll hear your points, and then we'll give it to Kwesi Kwating to respond.
Okay, thank you very much. If you follow me on the platforms I've been, anytime I was asked specifically that do I think it was the minister who took the money and did the placement, I often say that it is possible that somebody took the money and the minister may not know about it. I've always said that, and I still maintain that position. That is a possibility. But one thing I'm struggling to understand is that if somebody uses your name to commit fraud, you don't approve of the fraud, and you don't think the person acted well, and you are not taking any serious steps to trace that person, expose that person, then it becomes very difficult for us to say that you don't know what is happening. I'm saying this because Professor Opoku Amankwa, one of the 2 people, if you read that report, even whilst he was in office, okay, he told the committee that he could not absolve himself of any fraud. It is in the report, because there was a time he assigned his access to somebody. So there were issues of corruption. And what did he do? He decided to write to the BNI to come and investigate. For certain reasons, the BNI pulled out. The information we at the 4th Estate have is that some powers from above stopped that investigation. He wrote to the CID. The CID came. For whatever reason, the CID also pulled out. They didn't do the investigation. So on the part of Professor Opoku Amankwa, there is evidence that he seriously wanted something to be done. And he told the committee that it was possible that the fraud could have come from his access. and he took steps that is well documented. Let us come to the minister. I sat face to face with the minister to interview him. And the issue of these allegations of corruption and the action that were taken, the minister never mentioned to me that there was some investigation internally and that anything was done about it. This report we are talking about only came about because we at the Fourth Estate brought out this story. Somebody within the ministry leaked a letter, and then we followed up and got a report. It is curious to note that the minister who should have been telling us the efforts he himself had taken by citing this report was silent on it. And finally, one thing Mr. Kwati has never been able to say to any journalist who interviewed him was when this report was submitted to the ministry by the committee. I just want him to bring clarity to it. He's been speaking to this report, but skirting around this question. When did the committee finish its work? When was the report presented? What did the minister do specifically when it is in the report alleging that for a fraudulent activity? If it wasn't him, if he didn't know about it, what did he do about this? Since he got the report, and since they have a printout of who placed who and not placed, have they been able to trace this particular placement and find out who brought this name and got it placed through the minister? I am not saying that the minister took money. It is possible he didn't know about it. The placement too, and if a candidate is placed in his name, they should be able to know through whom that placement came from, because I'm told that the system is designed in such a way that even from the schools, when they are bringing the list, their protocol list, there is a column for remarks that they have to state that this protocol is coming from the headmaster. This protocol is coming from the chief of the community. This protocol is coming from the Old Students Association president. This protocol is coming from the PTA chairman, so that if there's anything wrong with that protocol, they will be able to trace it to the person. Are we saying that as far as the minister is concerned, if somebody perpetuates fraud in his name using his login access, he is unable to tell us who did that? This issue, let the security agencies come to investigate. There are some issues, and from UTV, and he's telling us that everything has been printed. They have it, and they should be able to perhaps know who did it and hand that person over to the police. But he is not able to tell us when they got this report and what they have done about these specific allegations that point to the minister. And so if you keep quiet and then you don't seem to be fighting hard to clear your name, then you give people room to worry. That is my point. So I would want him to tell us when this report was presented to the ministry and what they have done to trace who placed these names in the minister's account or through his access.
Okay, Kwesi.
I'm not sure Manasseh is the one who is interviewing us.
Well, I mean, you need to be fair. You need to be, Kwesi, you need to be fair to him at this moment. No, you granted him audience when he brought out these
findings.
Other than
that, I should have the liberty to also ask questions and probably to turn into questions.
That you're not being fair. You granted him access when he came up with the concerns.
It should turn into a question seminar if Manasseh is the one who is not the host of it.
Kwesi Kwarteng, let's be fair. Let's be fair.
Can I proceed?
Yeah. Yes. Let's be fair.
So I have indicated on this platform and this program that the report is a draft report, and I'm not sure when Manasseh met the Minister of Education, he was expecting the minister to preempt his questions and then answer questions that he himself has not even asked. I'm sure the same Manasseh probably would have also been singing a different chorus, that the minister is giving answers to questions that he has not even asked. So when it became necessary that probably the discussion of the report has become quite dominant for us to discuss, I'm sure we are discussing it. Again, Manasseh speaks about the powers that be. You see, in all his analogy, let me tell you what Manasseh is trying to do. Today, let me be blunt here. In research, right, when you conduct a research, you leave the conclusion or whatever your findings for people to make their final determination. A lot of times you even make your conclusion, and based on that, people are able to question your methodology, critique your research. When they identify a gap, when there is a lacuna, based on that, they are able to improve on their research and bring in new ideas. It's also, I'm not a journalist, but it also applies to journalism. In journalism, after you have done all your investigative piece and maybe arrive at your judgment, you don't force your judgment on people and then try to...
Yeah, but that's the point I keep repeating. That there's no conclusion on this matter.
No, there has been a conclusion. And you see, if you see the trajectory of his presentation, directly or indirectly or subtly, it's just to, get that big guy within the story and make it look like...
No, but the point is, till now, you've not disputed the fact that indeed the minister's access was used. You've never disputed that on this platform.
I have not disputed the fact, but
precisely. So it's fair to report that the education minister's access was used. As to whether or not it was the education minister himself or otherwise, I guess that's where the question is going to now. Let me even help your case. Let me even help your case. Let's even admit, for the purpose of this discussion, that it was even the minister himself who, how do you call it, did that placement. That placement that is in question. How is a minister able to know that whoever individual that brought the access or that brought that placement request probably has been compromised or took A amount or B amount? You see, we deliberately want to pretend as though the fact that the access was abused, it means that maybe the minister has knowledge of it. No, but I guess this is not just about the minister. This is about the system. We've seen individuals in that tape who were on record, of course, accepting favors or bribes, if you want to call them as such, just to compromise the system. So if the attack is not on the minister, which I believe clearly the investigative piece is pointing to, it would then be focused on the individuals, the corporates, the people who are taking the money to compromise the system. Why not go after them? Why not put their names out? These are the concerns that are coming up, and not necessarily the minister.
We are still missing the point here. You have a draft report that we are speaking to. I am not sure the expectation is that the Minister for Education should make a final determination or decision on the draft report. Unless, of course, you have the very final report. Based on that final report, you say that person A or person B, person C has been indicted. Indeed, even if they are indicted, I am going to repeat the same point again. It is not the Minister for Education who make a determination on criminal prosecution or whatever is supposed to happen to them. At the end of the day, the ministry, we are ever open in terms of opening up for an investigation and then getting to the conclusion of this matter. If indeed a person A abused the minister's access, what is there to be afraid of?
The Ghana Education Service has its code of conduct that it can apply even as we wait for a criminal prosecution or investigation into the matters. You can apply that onto whichever officer may be found culpable. No?
You see, so why are you still jumping ahead of the gun? Especially when we are still discussing a draft document here. Unless, of course, you dispute that what I said probably something that you are not taking. We are talking of a draft document. That I'm saying that
I don't think you are fair to all of us, because we pay you with our taxes, so you have to account to us. The minister is our employee, so he has to account to us. You are telling the whole world that this is a draft document. When you do this, you are impugning on the integrity of those who are holding on to that document. We are asking you, you are not. You keep on saying that I'm jumping into conclusions and all of that. If you don't know about investigative reports, let me tell you that In investigative reporting,
I am not
you
here
can
for
draw
lectures.
conclusions.
Manasa, I am
when
not,
you
okay.
have evidence.
So I see where this is going.
You have to do. I am not here for lectures on investigative
okay.
report.
I see where this is going, but okay. So gentlemen, gentlemen, calm down. Let's clear the matter.
You are lecturing me on journalism.
Okay.
And I'm telling you that the report was given to you.
Yes. Kwesi, I'm giving you the time to respond to the issues because clearly, in the end, the back stops with the minister and by extension your ministry. So that's why we are asking questions so that you respond to them. Just calm down. Just calm down for me. I'm asking the question so that you clarify the matters. So we all have clarity. Why?
Yes, I'm saying that.
So let's clear this off the table before we proceed. Why are you facing that difficulty in pointing out who may have used the minister's accounts, given the fact that he may not be himself, just to put out that name, and then sanctions may follow, and then we could have the investigative bodies pick up on that individual and find out what transpired?
Let me take it from this angle. If the Ministry of Education or the Minister for Education did not intend to even investigate its own internal process, and then based on that, use that investigative report or the recommendation to review his own, activities, the investigation shouldn't even in the first place have been instituted. That is one thing that you should know. So the fact that the Minister for Education or the Ministry of Education in the first place institutes or commissions investigation in their own internal activities demonstrates symbolically our resolve to address the loopholes within the placement system that we have. You have a report that is ready, and I am telling you that it's a draft report. For the purpose of this discussion, let's even agree it's a final report. Ultimately, if there have been culprits or people have to be held liable for misconducting themselves, what is the right thing to do? Definitely, this obviously amounts to a criminal activity. Is that not the case? Because that is a fraudulent activity. Fraudulent activity, I'm not sure you are expecting the Minister for Education to then make determinations on fraudulent activities. But what I can show you is that when the final report is ready, the Minister for Education, the Ministry of Education will take all the relevant actions based on the recommendations.
And apologies,
Adam, I'll give you. I am again assuring you, can I land?
Yes, just go
ahead. The Ministry of Education will not shield any individual whatsoever who may be found culprit or who may be found liable in terms of having misconducted himself during the placement process. Okay. Of course, the Ministry of Education is not governed by robots. It's not governed by angels. It's not only angels that work in the ministry. There can be that possibility. But I'm saying that in the interest of natural justice, you cannot base on a draft report to indict person A or person B and then try to create a linkage that the minister has not acted responsibly. Indeed, if there was no quality assurance mechanism, how was the investigation able to even find out in the first place that person A or person B has misconducted himself? Yes, there is a problem, but the way to go about such a problem is not to deliberately shift blame and then attack the personality of somebody who has worked all these years to build his reputation as integrity. If the report is saying that, somebody paid A or B money, obviously we can track it. We should be able to know that a person did the placement.
Kwesi, exactly what we've been doing all day long. Who did that? And once we get the identity of the person, the minister will be off the hook, I guess.
Can you come again?
Yes. So all we are trying to do now is to identify who used the minister's platform. And Adam, apologies, I'll come to you, Adam. But Kwesi, here's the point.
The person who used the minister's platform, obviously, if we are able to establish that such an activity or such a, such act was done. Definitely, the final.
So you are disputing. So you are disputing now that the minister's platform was used to place the student.
So I have never disputed that.
So you are not disputing that. So someone has done that. Who did that?
So I have never disputed that. I am saying that yes, it is possible. But within the context of the possibility, it is also possible that the person who did that might have even been turned into a guru boy without even knowing that whoever brought the list have taken money. There is also a possibility that the person who might have used the minister's assets, let's even say it's even the minister, there is also even that possibility that whoever used it might have also been compromised. And at the end of the day, when you have the final report, that is where final determination is able, can be made from it.
Manasseh has helped you with evidential value as to the individuals specifically who have taken money to do the postings. Now you have, just hold on for me. I'm just trying to connect the dots so you can respond. I'll give you that ample time. Now you have an investigative report you claim is not final, pointing out that the minister's access was used to do that transaction, which is in question here, correct? The next phase of what we're trying to identify now is who used that platform, the platform of the minister, to do that fraudulent transaction, because you haven't disputed the findings. Just hold on for me. I'll give you the opportunity.
Why don't you refer to the report?
Yeah, just hold on for me. You haven't till date, you haven't disputed the findings of the Fourth Estate. You are not either disputing what it is that the interim report is saying, that indeed the minister's account was used. So to connect that dot, we're identifying the individual and, you know, the natural person in this case who sat behind that computer, who placed that student in the category A school. So you have every piece of evidence helping you just to identify that individual. So if it's not the minister, as you're telling us now, who did that fraudulent transaction?
You see, I'll waive such a leading question, but granted that it was even the minister himself who did it, I am suggesting to you that your earlier conclusion is not sustainable on the basis that the minister, whoever he helped, it is possible that he didn't know that person might have taken money. Same applies to whoever also used the minister's assets.
Okay, so you are withholding the name. You are withholding the name of the individual.
Okay. At the end of the day, you have an internal investigative body or commission that was commissioned. Obviously, the report should be able to point out to whether person A or person B or person C. What now the reports point us is the minister's assets. So it is only through thorough investigation that is where we're able to know that within that time, was it the minister who did himself or person A or person B who did himself? I'm not sure the expectation is that Kwesi Kwarteng should be able to manufacture or pinpoint names for you, that it is yourself or Manasseh or whoever individual that did it. Ultimately, we have not denied that there is a possibility that the minister's assets has been used. But I'm saying that even if it was used, whoever used it, whether the minister or his assignees, obviously, whether or not monies were paid, we will be able to track it through a proper investigation. Other than that, where do you arrive at?
Kwesi Kwarteng, your boss says he's not the one who took the money to do the fraudulent transaction. Now you're saying that someone may have been used as a pawn. You're not putting out the name of the person, and you are also not allowing the speculation to go on that it was indeed your boss who did that transaction. So how then do you help the people of Ghana? How then do you help the people of Ghana? If someone walks up to you to say, okay, so who did the transaction?
Listen to this.
Yeah.
Listen to this. Don't deliberately structure questions and then expect a very rigid answer. I am telling you that the draft report, based on the draft report that we have, that Manasseh is speaking to, is saying that it is the minister's access, right?
Yes.
So it is only after forensic audit of the system, that is where you'll be able to know that with the minister's access at that particular moment, which person approved or did that placement. You cannot just off-head determine that it is person A or person B. It doesn't work that way. I don't know why this has also become very
What time was the report completed?
The report, as indicated earlier, initially was supposed to be commissioned between July. The report was finished in terms of the draft report. I think was last 2 weeks. The minister had the draft report, and the assurance that came from the committee was that they are going to work on the final report and then make a presentation to him. So the confirmation that, or the brief that I have from my minister is that last 2 weeks, the draft document was presented to him. Of course, I said this on the even PM Express when I made the point that having spoken to the chief director, he re-emphasized the point that the draft or the report then was finalized and then has been presented to the minister. So it was within the same week. But in terms of specific date, I am unable to get it offered unless I confirm for you.
So so it's fair to conclude that 2 weeks ago, the Minister for Education knew that his passwords or access login details were used. He was
based on the draft report.
He was well aware of that.
Based on the draft report, based on the draft report, he knew everything within the draft report.
So he shouldn't be surprised if there's a report out there that his access has been used.
Is that the contention?
I'm asking a question.
No, I'm not sure that has been an issue. The issue is your deliberate commentary and analogy of trying to bring you in.
You told me that your boss knew about this 2 weeks ago.
No, I mean, nobody has disputed that. Has anybody disputed that? What we are disputing as a Ministry of Education is the analogy and the commentary and the judgment that you want to create that based on the fact that his access was abused. I mean, it presupposes that he should be indicted. And I'm saying that that argument cannot be sustained.
I have not, at least I'm speaking from the position of what I've seen online.
If you want to be fair to yourself,
we have not said, and I have that report, I've read that story as well. We have not said anywhere in our reportage that the minister should be indicted. We just stated the facts as it is pointed out, which the minister himself has on his table, that yes, indeed, your access was used.
I'm surprised why, at the latter stage, you also don't want to accept responsibility for the remarks that you made when you were introducing the program. You spoke to the extent that you even said the minister has been indicted. And that was why I needed to. No, you can replay it. I haven't
said that. And I've told you on record that we haven't said the minister should be indicted. And you can check that. I mean, this is an online platform. I could raise that on the screens for all of us to see the headline, what's on myjoyonline.com right now.
Then there's no contention here. Because at the end of the day, the ministry ourselves admit that within the protocol system, there can be loopholes and there are indeed some people who may take advantage and exploit people.
Okay.
Whether through the one that the Ministry of Education controls for the general public or through the one that the schools control. At no point have we ever run away from that.
Okay, I'm granting you your narrative that someone may have been used as a pawn. Will you assure the people of Ghana that, of course, the minister has read the report 2 weeks ago, the days are going by, this matter still lingers on? Are you giving the assurance to the people of Ghana that you would fish out the individual involved just to clear the name of the minister?
The Ministry of Education have retweeted many times, and we are going to repeat. At no point will we shield anybody. At no point will we protect anybody found culpable. It is even the more reason why the investigation was instituted. If we didn't want to implement the recommendations or the findings of the investigation, there wouldn't be even any point in putting up an investigative committee in the first place. So the assurance is that whoever is found culpable based on the report, whether from the Ministry of Education, whether from the schools, at the end of the day, we are more than ready to work with all relevant institutions to make sure that a resolution is met. Obviously, when it comes to these matters of fraud, you and I know is a matter that borders on criminality, and relevant institutions will be invited to take it from there. But of course, in concluding, at least we are now at the same level that the Minister for Education, the fact that his access was reduced, cannot be hanged. But what the Minister for Education, with our discussions with him, has again emphasized and reiterated is that we will take total responsibility and address whatever systemic challenge that is in the placement system, regardless or irrespective of where the challenge comes from. We are duty bound to address whatever, how do you call it, loopholes or systemic challenges that is within the placement system.
You see, we've always been on the same page. No one is saying the minister did this directly. We're not also ruling out the possibility, and you agree that's why we're all looking for the individual who's at the center of this. You agree?
Ghanaians are watching, unless of course you want to stand a different.
we're all watching. You know that so well.
Understand the narrative. Everybody understands the narrative that we're trying to push.
Right.
Except to say that whichever way is for the larger good. Just like Manasseh in his fourth state did a very good job. The vital information that has been provided, like I reiterated earlier, will be used to strengthen the system. The challenge has been systemic. It is not a day-old or year-old challenge. It's been with us. We've done many interventions to strengthen it. Of course, so far as it's fraught with human interface, you may get one or two challenges, especially when the desire to get into those big institutions is there, and how lucrative those unscrupulous individuals who may also want to take advantage of the system may extend they may go. But the assurance is that whatever challenges that exist, when we are able to make a final determination as to the final report, yes, we will make a determination and then grab the whip if it's from the Ministry of Education.
Okay.
Except to say that the fact that you are able to trace access to somebody from the Ministry of Education may not necessarily suggest that such a person took money. You can come to the Ministry of Education or whoever had the access. The person will probably effect your changes. The person may not necessarily be aware that you have taken money yourself. So those possibilities, we should not also be hasting to run them down, because in the interest of natural justice, we have to be fair to every person and not necessarily run judgments on people at the end of the day.
Adam Senanu?
I'm sorry, Bless, but I have a difficulty aligning with you this afternoon. As far as I can understand, the minister stands indicted for allowing the abuse of his access. And I want to place that firmly on record. The minister stands indicted for allowing the abuse of his access. Under normal circumstances, the responsible thing that ought to have happened, if the minister identified that he was going to have to release access to more than one individual he could trust, would be either a redesign of the system, because it was done at great cost to allow certain security features, or else he should have had a system where you can tell who logged in at what time and traceability is ensured. So I will not go with the narrative that he does not stand indicted. He's indicted for allowing the abuse of access to his login, because there was at great expense that systems are designed, especially because this issue of placements and protocol has generated a lot of controversy in this country. So let's not shift the narrative. Any responsible public officer at that position who's been given this kind of security features to ensure that we have a limited access and can guarantee what is done within that space ought to take note. You don't allow the abuse of the access you've been given through a process that developed a system to guarantee that these things don't happen, and then come back and tell us that even it will require a forensic audit. The fact that somebody gathered the courage to use his access tells you a story. It is telling. How would anybody gather the courage to use his access to do something like this? That's on one score. And the fact that Mr. Kwating is telling us that without a forensic audit, we cannot establish who actually used the access to do this, tells us that there were no proper actions taken to protect, as it were, the interests of the citizens and ensuring that the right thing is done. And so at this point, please, let's not run away from the fact that the minister does stand indicted. Thank you.
Manasseh?
I am at pains when he tries to make it sound as though, and he actually said on Adom that sometimes we go about speaking on the issues as if we have an interest or a motive for doing what we do. I must say that we did this in the interest of the country. We presented facts, and I have at all material times, after understanding how the system works, said that it is possible that it could be done without it takes, or I get Joy FM to employ somebody. And then later on, Joy FM gets to know that I took money before bringing that person, or that person who was employed, that person who was employed through Manasseh's recommendation paid money to be employed. Joy FM will come directly to me. Manasseh, this is what we are getting. If you didn't take money, is it possible someone else introduced this guy to you for you to recommend it to us? So I don't think it is that difficult. I have understood the system. I have had explanation from insiders. And it is also telling that if you read the report, there are some persons who told the committee that previously they could log on and be able to trace. But this time, it is as if it was shrouded in secrecy. That's what the committee actually concluded, that it was shrouded in secrecy. And finally, this issue of the report, somebody is just drawing my attention to the fact that when Mr. Kwarteng spoke to Evans Mensah on PM Express, he mentioned a different timeline when this report was submitted. After here, we are going to verify and fact check. But even granted that the report was submitted 2 weeks ago, it is enough time to have known who did that, because he says he could tell us what time Professor Opoku-Amankwah made the very first placement and when he made the very last placement. And there is something we should also be asking the ministry and also the consultants. The committee said they were not given access to some information to know who placed which candidate. And they claimed that within 6 months, the system is archived. If my memory serves me right, the placements were done in April last year. So I don't know at what point the committee was set up in June. So if they're able to tell us when they opened the system and when the 6 months elapsed, because it doesn't appear as though the timelines they are using to deny or used to deny the committee certain vital information are timelines that we should understand if we know what happened. And besides, if the ministry was minded to get to the bottom of this, you set up a committee made up of some of the topmost officials of your ministry. And then the IT person you employed who takes instructions from you. If you read the report, the committee made the request and the technicians didn't bother to even respond to some of them. And the committee said that they would have been able to resolve some of these issues that we are still here debating if they had access to that system. The ministry pays for that system. The system doesn't belong to the technician. So if the ministry wanted to do this report and the technician said no, and the ministry would fold its arms and say that, well, the committee didn't get it, and the technician we pay is keeping that information for us. Everything that is in that software is for the ministry. I struggle to find or understand how serious they are at getting to the bottom of this matter. And in the coming days, as you said, I think it is in the supreme interest of Dr. Yao Osei Educhun to produce who did what placement, because I can say that the office said, I mean, it's not fear moving from a second in Jananka. And see, Dr. Yao Educhun, it's now I'm obedient a second in Jananka. One also near and no pure the second man. And Tia Bisasa wine and Ojananka. Thank you.
Anyway, but Manasseh, in all of this, I hope there's no personal fixation on the education minister? Because it's part of the concerns Kwesi Kwarteng has been raising.
I don't see what the personal fixation is about. Dr. Educhum is somebody, when you go and listen to the Banredo Memorial Lecture, you follow my Facebook, I have in the past praised him so highly. Whatever we went in to do didn't have anything. We started hearing about these allegations even before he got in here. So his name is mentioned, that his access has been used. They don't dispute that. So I struggle to see how somebody would say there is what? Personal fixation. This is somebody I admired, somebody I publicly praised, but when I'm doing my job as a journalist, if his name was not mentioned, even in the internal report. So are we saying that the committee is also fixated about Dr. Educhum? No. It is just that somebody has used his access. We are even not sure that he himself didn't use it, because we often say somebody, but the possibility that he may have used it. There's also the possibility that someone else used it. There's also the possibility that he didn't know somebody took the money. In this case, they have all the details, and he knows who he gave his access to.
All right.
So they are in a better position to tell us. If not Dr. Educhum, like you asked, then who? And if that happens and the person is brought up and handed over to the security agency that he used my name to do ABC, I didn't know about it, so let the law deal with him. I don't think any rational human being would still want to associate the minister with this. But until they come out to tell us something, their own committee is saying that the system was shrouded in secrecy. So you cannot blame people who are speculating and still wondering who may have done this.
Okay. Manasseh, thank you. Adam Senanu, thank you. Let me give the final minutes to you, Kwesi Kwarteng, if you have anything to say. We have a very limited time, so you do that for us very briefly.
It looks like Manasseh keeps confusing the internal report with some hearsays that he had from people he calls persons within the ministry. And on one side, the committee report said this. On the other side, they said that. On one side, they said the committee was denied information on relevant information. So how was the same committee able to make findings that at the end of the day, they were able to even point accusing fingers at the minister's access? You get the inconsistency in Manasseh's submission. But for me, I quickly want to tackle on the bit about the other gentleman, where he was speaking of the minister supposed to be indicted. I will excuse him because if it looks like all the explanation that I gave, even Manasseh even affirmed the possibilities, he still talks about indictment, which for me is a stronger word, is a stronger word used in criminal, and I'm not sure it will suffice here. But what is most important is that ultimately, the Ministry of Education do not take whatever issues that has come up, especially emanating from Manasseh's, his coming from Manasseh's investigative piece lightly at all. What the Ministry of Education, again, has reiterated is that even before Manasseh brought his investigative piece, we were working on it. It is the more reason why we commissioned such a committee so that, with the committee's finding, just like any other institution, we should be able to rely on that and review our own internal mechanisms and how we do our things. Manasseh's own is just a plus or an add up. We are still going to work with that, his investigative piece. Again, whatever internal arrangement or internal mechanism that we have, being it investigation, we'll use the recommendation, the final recommendation that will come out to strengthen our system. The assurance is also that we are, again, working with all relevant state institutions to make sure that whatever loopholes within the system, we should be able to address it. But again, what is most important that I have to highlight before I conclude is also a caution to parents. It's just like bribery. If one person does not pay, it's very difficult for the other person to accept. So we caution parents to that whilst we are preparing for the 2023 placement to, there's also that possibility that people may again want to abuse the system, and then they should be cautioned against paying monies to any individuals. If there are any genuine issues, they can walk to their institution, respective institutions, they can walk to the resolution centers, and they can walk to the Ministry of Education or Ghana Education Service, and whatever issues will be addressed. But in the end, if we find any person from the ministry or wherever culpable, such a person will be dealt with according to law.
All right, gentlemen, I'm grateful that you've been able to join us here on the polls. Manasseh Azuri, also to you, Kwesi Kwarteng and Adam Senan. Thank you all, gentlemen, for joining us. You're still watching the polls. When we return, we'll deal with some more stories, including that controversial letter from the Attorney General asking the Auditor General to reverse the publication of the special COVID-19 report. We'll get into the details shortly. And you're welcome back. Majority Chief Whip Frank Anot-Dompreh says the leadership of the minority must immediately resolve the controversy surrounding the new sitting position of former minority leader Haruna Iddrisu. Today on the floor, Haruna Iddrisu caused a stir when he refused to sit on the seat that had initially been allocated him. We'll hear from Frank Anot-Dompreh shortly, but first listen to Haruna Iddrisu saying he can't take over Collins Dauda's seat because he is senior to him.
Forgive me that I have to assume your chair. There was whether I should take over from Honorable Collins Dauda or not. And I've told them that Honorable Collins Dauda is senior by age, senior even to this house. I would not fit into his chair as somebody who is well trained from home. So any other chair, Mr. Speaker, acceptable to me. I'm still the elected member of Parliament for Tamale-South. I thank you.
We can now hear from Majority Leader. The Majority Chief Whip, Frank Anot-Dompreh, who says this controversy is untidy and must be resolved immediately.
It's one thing for him to have said that. It's another thing for leadership to engage. I think they should do it quickly. The more it festers on, it could create problems. So I'll try and talk to Kwame. If there are things that you should be able to do, the timing is of essence. They have to do it quickly. In terms of crossing carpet, positioning, the intention. If you look at the law, it's about the intention. The mens rea, the intention. His intention was not to cross carpet. And he said it. He said it openly that, Mr. Speaker, I have to speak from your position. Crossing the variable, which is like the litmus test in drawing a conclusion on this, is the intention. Check the law. It's about the intention. There was no intention to cross carpet. So, ab initio is dismissed, and you have to dismiss that. But I'm saying that he sought permission publicly. This is not an issue we should drag. Me, I take a cue from what you are saying, that the positioning, especially for Honorable Haruna Iddrisu, they should discuss it. And I'm saying this carefully. I am trying to create any bad blood between the current leadership and the previous. I think it's just fair. So, and it has to be quick.
Okay, so that's the new controversy coming up on the floor of the House, the fact that the former minority leader may have crossed carpet. Let's bring in Kweku Asante now, who's, of course, monitoring all of the activities for us in Parliament. Kweku, so help us understand this. Where exactly is Haruna Iddrisu? Where's he expected to sit? And why is he refusing to sit at where Collins Dauda is sitting?
So, Brace, Blessed, ordinarily, the seat that the new minority leader has taken is that of Haruna Iddrisu. So Haruna Iddrisu now does not have a seat of his own. So Haruna Iddrisu, initially, the plan was to ask him to sit at the place Collins Dauda sit, and that is one of the front seats in Parliament to sit with Honorable Cletus Avoka. So that was the initial arrangement. But our understanding now is that the Honorable Haruna Idrisu has now been asked to sit right behind Haruna Idrisu, behind Atufosen as the new minority leader. So if you come to Parliament now, the seat that was occupied by Dr. Rashid Purple is now going to be the seat of Haruna Idrisu. But as you heard there, Haruna Idrisu say, that initial seat that was given to him, that seat of Collins Zauda, he is not happy to sit on it because Collins Zauda is a senior, not just in terms of age, but also in terms of seniority in Parliament. And so because of this, he does not want to take the seat. Our understanding was that Collins Zauda actually did not like the idea of giving out his seat, and so he fought it. So even though, as of yesterday, that seat had Haruna Idrisu's name, when Collins Zauda came onto the floor, he actually sat on that seat. And so we understand some push and shoves in the back had happened for some time. It was on this basis that Haruna Idrisu came on the floor today. When he came to the floor, he did not sit on that chair. He came to sit behind the minority leader's seat in Parliament. And he sat there for a while before he moved to the First Deputy Speaker's chair on the NPP side of the House. And that is very unusual for a minority member to be speaking on the majority side. And people have said that, well, that means Haruna Idrisu has crossed carpet. You've heard that the majority chief whip said, though, the intention, the main share is what matters. And so far, Haruna Idrisu did not evince any intention to cross carpet. So that's about it for now. Haruna Idrisu says he won't take that seat that belongs to Collins Zauda, and that any other seat that will be given to him, he will take it.
Okay, when he came into the House, first of all, where was he sitting?
So when he came today, he sat behind the minority leader in that seat that has now been given to him to be that seat that first belonged to Dr. Rashid Purple, that the ranking member on the Natural Resources Committee. That is the seat that has been offered to him now. So it is not clear why he came to sit there first and then left that seat and went to the other side and said that he does not have any new seat. And because of that, he will not take Collins Zauda's seat. Because when he came to the floor today, he came to sit on what is now his original seat in the House, Dr. Rashid Purple's seat, right behind the minority Dr. Atufosen. So that is where he sat today.
Okay, how's the leadership intending to resolve this issue? We know that it's generating a lot of tension in the House.
Right, so clearly today it was a bit untidy. When that happened, you would see that the majority side trying to clutch on it and trying to get some political points out of it. They are trying to make this a matter of the NDC in this area. The NDC minority caucus fighting each other and not agreeing on what they have to do. So that is the point. But our sources in the minority say that this is just a storm in the teacup, and that Haruna Idrisu has actually been offered a seat, Rashid Purple's seat, that is just behind the minority leader's seat in Parliament. So from tomorrow, if Haruna Idrisu comes to the floor again, where we expect him to sit is right behind Dr. Kesela Atufosen,
okay.
The seat Dr. Rashid Purple used to sit on.
All right, thank you. Kweku Asante, parliamentary correspondent, giving us the latest there. Reverse the publication of your premature report. That's the rather strange order coming through from the Minister for Justice and Attorney General, Godfred Yeboah-Dame, asking the Auditor General, Johnson Ekwuama-Isiedu, to follow what he believes is the laid-down procedure for releasing audit findings. In his latest special audit, as we know it, the government on government expenditure during the COVID-19 pandemic, Johnson Ekwuama raised some concerns and called for the retrieval, for instance, of the state funds that were used to purchase some COVID-19 vaccines, including $80 million worth of the vaccines which have not been retrieved and are locked up with the country's international partners. Well, in spite of all of these concerns, former Auditor General Daniel Yardom Malevo is calling for a surcharge.
As to why there is no disallowance or surcharges recently, I think the best person to answer that should be the Auditor General. Remember, the Constitution under Article 1A7 Clause 7B provides that the Auditor General, in the performance of his function, can disallow any item, in fact, use the word may, disallow any item of expenditure which is contrary to law and surcharge the people responsible. And that is what I sought to do, because I thought if there are no consequences for the infractions, the culture of impunity will continue. So that is what I sought to do. And I know for sure that the current Auditor General, Mr. Johnson Asiedu Ekuamwa, is more than capable of doing the same. Maybe he may have some challenges which I am not aware of, but I think that by the time I left office, the mechanisms and the institutional arrangements were in place, which he can use to do same.
Yeah, but you want him to go ahead and surcharge, do you?
Of course, yes. In fact, I was waiting to hear that following this report, these people who are misusing money have been surcharged. Because if we don't do that, we can continuously audit. He can send his people 1,001 times on the field, but we will continue getting these infractions. And even people get emboldened because they think that nothing is going to happen as a result of this audit. So it is my wish and my expectation that those that is saying refund should go ahead, serve them with notice of intention to disallow and surcharge them. If they are not happy, they should go to court. It doesn't matter whether they go to court or they don't go to court. It is quite deterrent. And if they go to court, well, they may win, they may not win. The Auditor General may lose some of the cases, may win some of the cases, but that is the name of the game.
I want to bring in now Ibrahim Murtala Mohammed, who's MP for Tamale Central and also a member of the Public Accounts Committee in Parliament. Thank you for your time here on The Pulse. Even before we hear from you on this latest directive from the Attorney General, I want you to listen to the concerns of the New Patriotic Party as well. They believe that some of the findings, of course, we need to wait for a proper exhaustion of some of the items identified by the Auditor General. Listen to the NPP side.
Friends from the media, the $120 million expended through the UNICEF AVAT platform to procure some 16.9 million Johnson & Johnson vaccines should not have been flagged, given effective communication. This would have come to light if officials had worked diligently. As it turned out, the Ministry of Health has agreed to a delivery schedule tied to the domestic uptake of the vaccine. Therefore, the $81 million flagged by the auditors is not lost to the state, and everybody knows that. The infraction cited against the Ministry of Information, which the NDC appears to be harping on, is a product of a breach of the regular audit procedure. Ideally, the audit service would typically organize an exit conference to discuss their findings and allow the agency the opportunity to clarify where necessary. However, this was not done. In a letter by the Ministry of Information to the auditors, it detailed the explanations to justify the basis for that expenditure to the audit. But now the truth would not matter because the NDC has taken off already with this false impression that something had been done wrong in that case, when indeed it was a question of breach of procedure. At least, ladies and gentlemen, you know today, and so you can correct the NDC when they make those false claims in your...
Okay, so that's the position of the NPP. For you as a member of Parliament, and of course having served on the Public Accounts Committee, do you feel that this special report on COVID-19 as issued by the Auditor General is premature, a reason for which we must, of course, heed the calls of the Attorney General to unpublish?
To the gentleman, I think is the gentleman at the Dankwa Institute.
Yeah, so that's the Director of Communications for the NPP, Richard.
Okay. In the first place, his statement is not true. In the second place, his conclusion is made from the position of absolute ignorance of how the Auditor General operates. And the third place is a desperate attempt to deceive the people of this country into believing that the Auditor General did a terrible job. It is important for me to also add that the position the NDC has taken on the matter of the Auditor General's report is the position taken by every meaningful civil society organization I have known. It's a position taken by you, the media. It's the position taken by anybody who sincerely and genuinely thinks that corruption ought to be fought. It is also important to state that the Auditor General, this Auditor General, was appointed by President Nana-Addo. He was appointed after the other former Auditor General was hounded out of office. And it is also important to add that the processes by which the Auditor General does his work and how it reports his work is the same way they have been doing even when the NPP was in opposition. Let me quickly say that to say that the exit conference was not done can only be said by someone who doesn't even know how the Auditor General does his report. As a matter of fact, before the report is submitted to Parliament, the exit conferences would have been held. When the report is submitted to Parliament, then Mr. Speaker then refers it to the appropriate committee, in this case, the Public Accounts Committee. The Public Accounts Committee would then afford individuals or institutions cited for either breaches as far as our financial management are concerned in this country to come and defend themselves or to justify why those breaches were occasioned. So the argument that the Auditor General's reporting on the issue is illegal, as stated in the letter by the Minister for Justice and Attorney General, for me is bunking. And to be very honest, I would advise this young Minister for Justice and Attorney General not to allow his actions to be emotionally driven. In the first place, the moment an individual or institution is cited by the Auditor General from their investigation, that institution or that person is taken through all the processes, including the exit conference. After the audit is done, before the report is compiled, the Auditor General would have made the report available to that individual or institution cited for such breaches. And the moment the report is made available, it ceases to be a private thing, it becomes a public document. Also, again, when the report is submitted to Parliament, and Mr. Speaker refers it to the Public Accounts Committee, it becomes a public document. Mind you, our sittings are done publicly. That's why they call it Public Accounts Committee. Our sittings are done publicly. And in fact, before even the report is submitted, you go through the Auditor General's report, website, you will find the entire report. So I don't get the point that the Auditor General should not publish it. Publishing it doesn't mean that those people have been deemed to have committed crimes. That is why they say the report. In fact, it becomes a crime after the Public Accounts Committee affords the individuals or institutions cited the opportunity for them to come out and defend. If they are unable to defend themselves, the report is then sent to plenary. Once it is adopted by the entire House, then it becomes a prima facie, if you like, grounds for prosecution. One thing I have seen that this Minister for Finance is running away from is that our committee has referred to him over 400 individuals and institutions for prosecution. You should find out from him whether he has initiated the prosecution of a single one of them. Over 400 institutions and individuals have been referred to this Minister for Justice and Attorney General to prosecute, and he refused to do so.
But in that letter, the auditor, the Minister for Justice, points out that there's been correspondence between the Office of the Auditor General and himself. So it will be premature to go ahead.
It is not the Auditor General. The Auditor General, the moment the report is submitted to Parliament, it ceases to be the property of the Auditor General. It becomes the property of Parliament. So this idea of correspondence between his office and the Auditor General is neither here nor there. I thought he was going to say that there have been correspondence between Parliament and his office. The Auditor General submits his report. The report is referred to the Public Accounts Committee. The Public Accounts Committee affords the individuals and institutions the opportunity to come and defend themselves. And at the end of the day, the committee then submits its report to plenary. Once it is adopted by Parliament, the committee then refers the issue, Parliament then refers it to the Auditor General for prosecution. Mind you, the Public Accounts Committee has the powers of the High Court. So this argument that there have been correspondence between his office and Public Account and the Auditor General, for me, is neither here nor there. Find out from him why he has refused to prosecute the over 400 individuals and institutions referred to him for prosecution. One very important point I also want to make. Many people in this country were concerned about the backlog of the report of Auditor General. Is that not the case? As I talk to you, we did the 2018 report, did 2019. As a matter of fact, we started the 2020 report, and we are done with various agencies and institutions. We shall begin our nationwide, public hearing sometime, I think, about 2 weeks' time. So this argument that there have been correspondence between he and the Auditor General, for me, is not the issue here. Find out from him why he refused to honor the obligation as indicated to his office by Parliament to prosecute individuals who have been cited by the Auditor General and confirmed by Parliament that they ought to be prosecuted. Why has he refused to do so? Last point, since when has this Minister for Justice and Attorney General realized that the reporting of the Auditor General is wrong? He was the Deputy Minister for Justice and Attorney General for 4 years. He has been the Minister for Justice and Attorney General for almost 3 years. And it has suddenly dawned on him that the way the reporting is done is wrong. The reason why he is doing that is because his government, his corrupt government, is exposed by the Auditor General to be fantastically corrupt. And it is putting the entire government in a bad light. That is why he is engaged in this desperate attempt to do what is not supposed to be done.
But then, what are you likely to do as Parliament? Because a lot of calls have come up. Even your own party is asking for a live telecast of the sittings on these special reports. What will happen at the committee level? I know you're not the chairperson, but of course you have information on what the next line of action will be.
As far as we are concerned, we don't give a jot what the minister says, whatever statement he writes to Auditor General. As far as we are concerned, there is absolutely nothing wrong with the way the reporting is done, as long as the people are not accused to have committed a crime until a proper investigation is done. And isn't it curious that he's refusing to carry out his constitutional obligation to prosecute those people who have been identified to have indeed occasioned breaches as far as our financial management is concerned, both by the Auditor General and Parliament. Yet he's focusing on trivialities. That's not what the people of this country are looking forward to. They are looking forward to ensuring that these individuals and institutions are prosecuted. If they really and genuinely mean to fight corruption, unfortunately, under this government, they are fighting anybody who is fighting corruption.
Okay, we'll have to leave it here. Ibrahim Mutala Mohammed, thank you for your time here on the Pulse Wall. There was pandemonium at the Enyinam police station in the Itiwa East district of the Eastern region after the arrest of 2 illegal miners who were arrested by the task force and national executives of the Ghana National Association of Small-Scale Miners. The task force made the arrest as part of activities to inspect the work of the task force to ensure the Brim River is clean after its formation 4 months ago. There's more in the following report.
And we're basically behind the name. Operatives, but were resisted by other illegal miners in the community who had masked up as the Yinim police station, which resulted in pandemonium between a Yinim youth led by Kusho and the task force team. Meanwhile, these illegal miners, who mostly operate at night, have dug huge trenches just 5 meters away from the main Accra-Kumasi highway, a situation which is currently posing threat to hundreds of commuters who use the highway. Speaking to the media after visiting some illegal mining sites in the Fanti-Akwa South District, the national president of the Ghana National Association of Small-Scale Miners, Philip Ekufu, called for the immediate arrest of all illegal miners and perpetrators in the district, especially those working close to the highways.
Because I saw. If you say, in Crawford, Taka Garamsi, Anna, Yan small scale and I say, and Tessie, Banadi Yankas, I don't often a Garamsi. And Yen Tron, no more.
I'm sad about the situation here. The Galamsey is destroying the land, and we must do whatever it takes to arrest them so others know that it's a bad practice.
What's about Crawford? Yes, I do a bonny gun Habiano, the Betchum. Ye mo bia kwanso o maye ade mpan sai o man no lines is regular man kwanso yen kodutu baby abe sai o man japade nti kon bia be kwaso e be chi sankrofon e be chi o magana punya hu se esun Galamsey na sun small scale mine in Ghana na ade o maye de ade boni. We're not going to sit down for this thing to happen in this country. We have to stop it. We have to stop it. We're going to do that. So I've instructed the commander to make sure to arrest these culprits by the close of this week.
Well, and don't forget that you can log on to myjoyonline.com. We have updates on our stories for you. But that's all we have for you here on The Pulse. And just before we go, pictures, as you do know, tell many stories and inspire a lot of emotions, especially where love is in the air. It's the month of love, and Joy Prime is rewarding audience with the best experience of their lifetime in the most photogenic couple promo. Couples are to send their most memorable photographs to the WhatsApp number 055 157 5757, and the pictures will be posted on Joy Prime social media handles using the hashtag MCP and Joy Prime. The picture with the most likes and comments across the platforms will be selected for amazing prizes. So the lucky couples will receive that all expense paid weekend stay at the Golden Field at the La Palm Royal Beach Hotel, a spa day for two at the Marti Spa, and some candlelit dinner, as well as a unique gift tickets from our sponsors as well. Promo runs until the 12th of February. So make your lovers feel special by sharing that unique photograph of the two of you with the world. So the Joy Prime most photogenic couple is sponsored by Dodi World, powered by Volta Hotel, which is in Akosombo. We have Dream, Explore, Discover, and La Palm Royal Beach Hotel, a Golden Beach Hotel, uniquely golden, and then traditionally Ghanaian as well. Marti Spa, book a service now, and don't forget that Joy Prime is your ultimate experience. West Hills is also coming up in the news as well. We'll talk about all of that, of course, in our subsequent bulletins. But it's a wrap here on The Pulse. I am Blessed Sogah. Log on to myjoyonline.com for updates. Thank you for watching.